Kyodo News English World。
皆さんこんにちは。こちらは共同通信英文記者のポッドキャストです。英文記者は国内外で起きている出来事について取材してオリジナルの英文記事を発信したり、日本語のニュースを英語に翻訳したりしています。共同通信の英語の記事をテーマにいろんな国から集まる仲間たちと英語と日本語を交えていろいろディスカッションしていけたらと思っています。今日は2人の記者と1人のコピーエディターでお届けします。私は堀内純子と申します。2009年に共同通信に入社しました。2年ほど松江支局で日本語の方の部署で日本語の記事を書く記者もしていました。よろしくお願いします。
Hi. So my name's Tom. I've been at Kyodo for just over a year and a bit now, and I'm on the copy desk. I'm from the UK, and before I joined Kyodo, I was studying at university here in Japan.
Hi, my name is Donikin. I joined Kyodo about 5 years ago, and I'm from Australia.
今日は天皇皇后両陛下が英国を公式訪問したという記事について取り上げたいと思っています。帰国の際の記事なんですが、どにか読んでもらってもいいでしょうか。
Japan's Emperor Empress express thanks for state visit to Britain. Japan's Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako thanked the British government and King Charles in a statement on Saturday for hosting them during their week-long visit, expressing hopes for deeper ties between the two nations. Through our visit, we have been able to deepen our understanding of how the friendship that the peoples of our country and Britain cultivated over many years has come to be, the Imperial couple said in a statement issued after they landed at Tokyo's Haneda Airport.
ありがとうございます。So there were a lot of events that the Empress and Emperor attended during their visit. What is your impression of their state visit?
Yeah, I think it went really well. It seemed like I wouldn't say it was certainly in the news and people were very much aware of it, and I think they were generally very receptive to it. I think particularly if you think about the last time a Japanese emperor visited, and at that time there was still a bit more animosity, particularly from some veterans due to the war. Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting about their trip this time is that actually that's really changed, and it seems like bilateral relations, Japan-UK relations, and the relationship between the royal and the imperial family are actually much closer now, and I think people were really receptive to the visit.
I thought it was good for the Empress to be able to get out of Japan and go back to where I feel like she was like in her element because she used to be like from a diplomat's family. So I felt it was good for her to go there. I was happy to see her there.
Yeah, they visited Oxford University.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both of them studied there.
Yeah, right. And I heard that the emperor wrote a book about his experiences there. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's certainly what I heard somewhere. It sounded like they've got really close connections with the UK, which I think is really beneficial for the visit.
By looking at the Japanese imperial family and the British royal family, do you see any similarities or differences?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are lots of parallels and also some differences. I mean, of course, the imperial family and the development of the monarchy in Japan developed on a very different history and timescale to the British monarchy. But I think particularly in the post-war era, they both served very similar roles for both countries. And I also think they both had to deal with the post-war era in which they've suddenly been monarchies of countries that are sort of have large democracies. So I think they both have a lot of similarities in terms of that. Both of them try very hard to stay out of domestic politics as well. So there are a lot of similar strategies that I think they both use in terms of their public roles and their public responsibilities. In terms of some differences, I think one is the one I think that is particularly interesting is in Japan, you've obviously got the patrilineal system. So in Japan, that's obviously created something of a succession crisis. There's not enough people to succeed the throne, and that causes a lot of concern. In the UK, and I think it's almost because we don't have the patrilineal system, it sort of creates quite a different situation where there's actually too many royals. So there's been a lot of talk in the UK about slimming down the monarchy.
That's
rather
completely
than
different.
Yeah, it's almost completely the opposite. So I think that's a really interesting difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Do people in the UK see the royals as kind of close to them? Like a close presence to them? Or
Yeah, I think it depends. There's always people who've been against the monarchy and who don't like the concept of a monarchy, and they've always existed. But interestingly, support for the monarchy has always been pretty high amongst the general population. So you get a huge range of opinions, and some people are really not such big fans of them at all, and sort of see it as a waste of public money and all the rest of it, and would rather we became a republic. But they on the whole remain pretty popular in the UK, I would say. Yeah. How about the imperial family in Japan?
That's, I think, very similar in Japan. They were distant from the public, but recently they started social media, Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
I think, and they have attracted a lot of followers.
Yeah.
So the communication method by the imperial family is changing.
That's really interesting. The British royal family's Instagram seems a little more informal, and at the moment, the imperial families seems slightly more formal. But I wonder whether that will begin to change over time.
But in the UK, you can just call your royalty by name?
Yeah, I would say so. If people are sort of having a chat about the royal family, and people know that that's the conversation that you're going to be having, on the whole, people will just start saying Charles and Kate and William, and that's actually something you see in the tabloid press as well.
If you even in news stories.
Yeah, it can be for certain tabloid press rather than maybe more official newspapers, but it's certainly something you see. Yeah.
So, as copy editor, did you notice some difficulties in editing our stories? Because in our stories, we would never say. We were never referred to Empress or Emperor in their first name. We would always use Empress, Emperor for the second reference. All these, we try to be polite in our stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting point, actually, because as you say, in Japan, the culture here is to when using language, is to be very, very respectful towards the imperial family. And I think in the UK, obviously, there are people who subscribe to that, but there are also others who don't. And I think in terms of editing it, it just means you've got to be very, very careful, because the other thing you can do is sometimes there are sort of subtleties and differences, particularly because these are two monarchies with very long histories, and European monarchies tend to have similar structures to them, but the imperial family in Japan here, there's lots of small subtle differences. So you've just got to be very, very careful about not assuming that you know how things must work one way, and actually it might actually be something quite different. So one of these things was the discussion about whether the monarch is the head of state in Japan.
Right.
Because of course in the UK the monarch is the head of state, and that's an official duty of the monarch. But it's my understanding that in Japan actually it's slightly it's a bit more subtle, and actually they're the symbol of the state, but this concept of them being the head of state is slightly different. So watching out for things like that and being very, very careful about things like that is certainly one of those things that I had to look out for, yeah.
Also, as a writer, do you have any difficulties when you're translating Japanese stories on imperial matters?
I just guess like when they have like official titles or official names and just like finding out what they are and being careful about that. And then I mean like some of the emperors they're like named like posthumously, like Emperor Showa.
Oh right,
and
right.
Do you use their that name or like their real name sort of just, that takes some time to look into.
Yeah, about the stable imperial succession issue is a very big topic in Japan.
Yeah. I heard that gets a lot of attention.
Yes.
Yeah, that must be a big problem. Whilst we have sort of the opposite situation in the UK, where there's people like Prince Harry who has now left his official duties, but he's sort of going around doing podcasts and Netflix series, so sort of a slightly different issue.
ありがとうございました。そろそろ終わりの時間がやってきました。共同通信では共同ニュースプラスというサイトで日本や世界で起きた出来事について英語のニュースを発信しています。今日ご紹介した記事も掲載されていますので、ぜひチェックしてみてください。それでは皆さん、See you next time!